Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of bands who have changed singers. Kind of looking at a compare and contrast between bands as maybe they alter the way that they write music to accommodate a new vocalist, or maybe they don't at all. We checked out Black Sabbath earlier this week, and there was a stark difference in composition, though there was also almost a decade of change between the two albums too, so might not have been necessarily indicative of the vocalist change, but there was an alteration to the way they write music. Today we're going to be looking at The Ocean. Yesterday we checked out a track from Precambrian, I think. Today, though, we're going to be looking at a track from Phanerozoic. Yeah, yesterday was Precambrian. So that was 08. This one is 2018, exactly a decade later. The song we're looking at is Silurian, Age of Sea Scorpions. Okay. Let's dive into this and see what The Ocean is bringing to the table today. Alright, interesting harmonies here. Lots of groove in this riff as well. Also has like a bubbling type of anticipation, like it's ready to blow, but gotta get there first. I really like the pacing on this too, the movement between the highs and the lows. We saw this yesterday as well. Really fun melodic drumming coming from the drums. Keeping up with the accent points that the piano is dropping, as well as the vocals. Why is this so groovy? Dude, there's so many bouncy sections to this track. Interesting bar extension there. There are a lot of vocals in this track, though. Interesting direction for this too. That moving bass line alongside the guitars is nice. Yeah, this is nice. Jazzy run there on the piano. Just subtly stepping outside of the key a little bit. There we go. I knew we had to get back to the heavy stuff eventually. I mean, this is the ocean, after all. Ooh, interesting harmony on that lead guitar here. The division here, the lower guitar, the higher guitar, and sort of the center harshes. Dude, this drumming though, golly. I'm gonna need a drum cam of this final minute and a half. It sounds really epic, too. Not usually a term I would use to describe the ocean. Yeah, the triplet mod, that was nice. Because we do have a bit of a retardando going on here too, which is a slowing down of time. And so throwing in the triplets also makes it feel like we're slowing down even faster. It compounds onto that feeling. Dude, okay, so I feel like I have the same reaction to the ocean every time we check them out, which is they're post metal. They do big atmospheres. I'm ready for this. And then there's lots of nuance to it that I don't expect, and I end up really liking it when we get through the song. And I always think, wow, that was more developed than I expect from them. I think I have them confused with a different band. I think I confuse them with Converge a lot. And I need to stop doing that. Maybe Converge is more varied as well, but I've only heard like two Converge tracks, which are just heavy almost all of the time. And because we checked out an album from the ocean too. I don't remember which one it was, but I was blown away by it. Do any of these album covers look familiar? Maybe Pelagial. I'd have to go back and look, but I mean, I really enjoyed that album. So they're a band that I feel like my reaction to them is always, hey, I enjoyed that more than I expected. And at a certain point, I just have to bring my expectations up. But I did enjoy this more than the one we checked out yesterday from Precambrian. And a lot of that comes down to diversity, dynamics, contrast, whatever term you want to use for a variety of sounds, which this song absolutely has. Of course, yesterday's song from Precambrian, what was it called? Oh yeah, Calimian. Yeah, I mean, it had variety too. We had lows, we had highs, we had heavy sections versus more acoustic sections. We had parts of the song that were layered with a lot of instruments to create something that felt dense, and then sections that were just big, massive guitar tones, just, two guitars and a bass and a drum kit. And those sections felt very different from the other. Still really going for atmosphere in a lot of it, but a different take on the size and weight. This song also does that, but I just feel like it does it in more variety. Precambrian kind of had their quiet sound and their big sound, and they just jump back and forth between the two of them. This feels like a linear track. It has the highs and lows, just like the one from Precambrian, but it doesn't feel like we're cycling between two different modes. We are progressing across a line, telling a story here, moving through a variety of different sounds. Yes, they can be grouped up into heavier metal sounds and lighter layered sections, just like the other song, but again, it doesn't feel like moving between two modes. It feels like consistently finding something new to explore. And part of that may come down to the story that's going on here. I don't know, the age of sea scorpions. Maybe there's a bit more development here than in the song Calimian as far as the era of the earth that they're making music for. It might be thematically relevant, but it might also be that decade of experience of writing this type of music and getting better at it over that time. I don't think that this is a band that developed or changed a sound to accommodate the new vocalist, even though this vocalist is very different from the ones we checked out yesterday. We'll get into that later when we talk about the vocals on this track, but it feels like an evolution of the band. Not for any reason other than to get better at a craft, to hear your shortcomings now and improving on them every time you make something new. Covering up and shaving off more of the rough edges and expanding on the ideas that you're already doing well, improving the sections you're already great at. And I mean, not just 10 years, but one, two, three, four. This was 5 albums later, which I mean, that's an album every 2 years. That's wild too. Just really cranking out I'm going to assume really great music, not sacrificing any sort of quality for this, and improving the whole time. I mean, I guess that's the ocean. But yeah, I can still hear a lot of them here. And, a lot of that comes down to the idea of atmosphere. Every single section here is dripping with it, whether it's just a couple of light instruments or a plethora of large ones, whether it's a wall of sound or a intricately layered set of various instruments. Every part in here has a fantastic emotional atmosphere to it. It all feels like something. There is usually a melody going on too, which is a little different from yesterday, but generally the melody feels secondary to the atmosphere. The point is to get you to feel something. It's, well, maybe more specifically, it's to represent something. I think that's one of the things that comes from knowing who this band is, what they do. They write music for eras of the planet. So they might be trying to represent something um, that happened in the Earth's history through music, a sonic representation of it. And maybe that's why this is slightly different. Maybe that's why there's more melody here. Maybe that's why there's more moving parts. But at the end of the day, it's about that atmosphere. It's about trying to build that sound, trying to figure out how you could represent that with sonic things, with sounds and melodies and textures and harmony. And so atmosphere becomes a core element of a lot of these sections. That's the ocean. That's what I expect from them. I do like the variety of atmospheres on this one though. Like I said, it doesn't feel like we're just bouncing back and forth between two different ones, but we can kind of group them up into the two moments. There is definitely the more metallic side of things. This usually strips a lot of the extra instrumentation down, and we get big, gnarly guitars, we get massive bass, and we get some wild drumming. The other side brings in all of the instrumentation. We have piano in here. I heard violin, maybe viola, um, clean electric guitars, clean bass, clean vocals, and the drums took up quite a bit of space on this one too. And I think that's what I want to touch on right here. Of all of the instruments, I think that this is the most different from yesterday's, and the one that stands out the most to me, what I consistently came back to. The drums on this are phenomenal. I absolutely love them, even in the more rigid traditional drum patterns. There's still interesting flourish and nuance to it, ways of adding in a little bit of characteristic on top of more standard beats. But then there's just, like what we saw at the end, almost pure melodic drumming. Something that lines up with what the melody is playing more so than trying to keep a backbeat. There is, of course, a core pulse in here, but that pulse is also represented in another instrument, whether it's the guitar or the or the bass guitar or even the vocals. There's an accent pattern that is creating the pulse for the song. The drums are following along with that, sure, but it's not because it's their job as the drummer to also be a metronome. It's because they're just following along with the melody line, which also has a rhythmic pulse to its accent pattern. And so we have drums in here that just feel, I don't know, primary to the song. They're not secondary. They don't sit in the background. They're not holding the beat. They're not being the glue that holds the song together. They are consistently a part of the spotlight. There's so many parts in here that the drummer's just going off with this long melodic movement across the entire kit. Fun rhythmic ideas, some chops thrown on display too. There's a couple of things, especially in the final rhythm, where I had no idea how he got his hands from one side to the other, played like 4/16 notes, and then got back to the other side of the kit within a beat or two. It's just there's skill. Like I said, I've got to see a drum cam of, if nothing else, the final 2 minutes of this song. I was really blown away by that. But it's not so much just the drum pattern itself, which is impressive. Just sheerly on a technical level, it also sounds good. But more importantly than all of that is that it works within the entirety of the song. So much so, like I said, it feels like it's a core component. This song would feel drastically different with a different drum pattern, particularly even a more metronomic, just sitting in the pocket kind of style. I think it would lose a lot of its heart. It would lose a lot of its impact. This song stands out because of the drums, at least for me. And it's one of those things where, I kind of hate to say this, but when it comes to songs that just use typical drum beats, the drummer's kind of replaceable. They're not bringing anything of their own into it. It's just a solid beat in the background. Stuff like this though really makes the drummer feel like a part of the band. Like if the drummer was changed, the band would be changed. Their output would be changed. I really love drummers like that where you can feel, oh, the drummer is a part of this band. They need to be here. If you replace the drummer, you get a different band. And I'm a huge fan of that. Same goes with bass. I feel like bass lines are often very simple and cookie cutter. Sitting on bass tones or following along with what the guitars do, and not really bringing anything of their own to the table, where anyone could be on the bass and it'd pretty much sound like the same part. And I think that's one of the reasons I really love hearing interesting bass lines in music. Not just because I play the bass and I like to hear that just as a different sonic quality to music, but also because it sort of informs me that the bassist is a part of the songwriting process, that they're important to the identity of the band. I don't always feel that with the drummer and the bassist. Guitarist? Sure, man. Everyone knows guitarists. Everyone knows frontmen, vocalists. They're really important to the identity of a band. Drummer and bass, I feel like not so much. Especially not anymore. I feel like drummers were more well known in the past as far as the world of rock went. I don't really know too much about past metal musicians. Maybe y'all can let me know about some drummers who are like really well known for elevating their craft in the world of like 80s metal, 90s metal. But there's some drummers in the rock world, 70s, 80s, where or even 90s, yeah, where it's just like, that's them. You know them by name no different than you know the guitarist because they're just that integral to the band's identity. And I think that's what's going on here. I don't know this guy's name yet, but he's left an impression on me. And that's phenomenal. I love it whenever the drums can cut through like that and put a lot of personality into it and elevate the song. Like I said, it'd be a different track without this specific drummer applying their unique characteristic, their unique drumming style to this. On to the vocalist. I suppose that's a good place to go next. Yesterday we looked at The Ocean with Nico Weber's and Meta on vocals. They were both harsh vocalists. One was a bit lower, one was a bit higher. They introduced some interesting layered harshes in that song, but for the most part, they were absent anytime that the metal wasn't going on. Anytime we dip down to a more acoustic bit, we don't see that here. This song has a ton of lyrics. There were yesterday, I think we had a total of like 12 unique lines, 16 lines in total, something like that. I think this song's going to take me a little bit longer to read through before we do the lyric analysis, simply because the vocalist doesn't stop singing. it's it's not what I expect for the ocean. I don't know if we just haven't checked out anything this new. I mean, there's only 3 albums at this. We have this 2018, we have a 2020, which is the second part of this album, and then 2023 we had Holocene. I don't know if we've checked out anything with this specific vocalist on it. Loic Rossetti. Oh, he's been on vocals since '09. But he came on one album after Precambrian. So yeah, what we checked out yesterday was the last album without Loic on vocals. Okay, so I've definitely heard him on vocals then, because he would have been on Pelagial too. There's a lot of cleans on here. I don't expect that with the ocean. It leads to a lot of melody writing on this, not just in the heavier sections, which typically are deprived of melody. Like I've mentioned yesterday, I don't really think of the ocean as uh, a riffy band. They're an atmosphere band to me. They can write layered ideas to create atmosphere. They can use production to create atmosphere. I don't really think of them for memorable riffs. They did have that super sludgy riff in here, which is interesting because yesterday I complimented a super sludgy riff, like a single riff within, a series of less memorable ones. The same thing happens here. There's one really solid riff that's just super sludgy and groovy, and I love it. But nothing else really sticks out to me. So I really need that melody because this isn't a riff band. This is an atmosphere band. They're really great at texture and harmony and rhythm. Melody is just not something I typically associate with them, and so it's really nice to have that clean vocal throughout all of this track. There are a couple of places where he dips into a harsh, usually to punctuate or accentuate a specific word or the end of a phrase or statement, a way to just put that little bit of extra punch at a specific moment, but we really don't get a lot of the harshes in here. And a majority of this track is clean melody writing, and I love how that gets paired against the instrumental sections, which have melody writing from the piano, from the violin, from the guitars. Lots of instruments who take melody on that, plus the melodic drumming. It's just, there's always something going on that I think drives this feeling of melodic storytelling and expansion and pushes the song forward outside of an atmospheric growth. We got bits and pieces of it yesterday, sort of an alteration between really atmospheric sections and more melodically driven one. This is just melody driven from start to finish across both styles of writing. And when we mix that with the dynamic atmospheres and the constant growth throughout the track, we get something that is highly dynamic, very listenable to me. I absolutely love the journey of this song. And, I probably said this at the end of a lot of the ocean reactions. I need to listen to more of the ocean, apparently. I especially dig this, especially with less growls. And I don't know. I'm sure one of you will be like, dude, you always ask for less growls, and they really don't growl that much. Again, I might be getting them confused with the different post metal bands, but there's a lot of stuff in here that works for me. And if this is how this album feels, maybe after I listened to Pelagial earlier, was that last year, year before? Maybe this is where I need to start with them and push forward. I did like that track on Precambrian, but I feel like, this is really working for me. And y'all can let me know if Heliocentric or any of the other ones with Loic on vocals is like this. Maybe I can start from an earlier album, but I mean, Pelagial was good, and this track off of Phanerozoic is fantastic. Maybe this is where, maybe this is my diving in point to the ocean. Uh, yeah, that was a bad pun. I'm gonna check out some lyrics on this, see what's going on there. All right, with a little help of a few of the annotations on Genius, I believe this is about an early form of humanity having just evolved to come out of the ocean. It says, "Dust, all I see is red. I know the state you're in. Time has come once again, but this is not our habitat. This is not our place to be. We took great pains to not get down too deep into the raging stream of our subconscious." So, right here, I was a little confused about all this. Kind of makes sense after you get through the rest of this track, which, like I said, there are a lot of lyrics on this one. But the idea of being a place that is not where we were supposed to be, if we are originally water creatures and we have now come onto land, it's not where we're supposed to be. We also have an element later talking about to be trapped inside the layer of light, reflections bouncing off the walls, to be losing sense of time. This might have been a description of the world above the water, where the water would be the walls originally, but now light bounces off of them and light is everywhere rather than being diffused by the surface of water. So again, it's about being someplace new, growing and changing. It says we've said a few things now that we've never said before, and I don't know what that means. Maybe we'll wake up tomorrow. So this whole idea here is, again, being in a new place, doing things we've never done before. Now, earlier in the track, though, there is a stanza about, well, the sea scorpions, as the name of the song said we would probably get to. It says, sea scorpions prowl these waters. They are the apex predators. But this time we won't surrender facing the unknown. Close your eyes and hold your breath. Tell me now, are you really sure you want to walk this path once more? We know it's lurking at the end of the road. So, I don't know too much about this era of, uh, I guess, humanity, a form of humanity, one of the evolutions coming out of water life, maybe. Maybe this isn't humanity at all, but a different evolution of water creatures onto land. Because it does say that, we're walking this path once more. We're using legs rather than, fins. We're walking it rather than swimming it. It says that we know it's at the end of this road. Maybe this is the planet talking to this new evolution. Hey, dude, I've seen this before. You sure you don't just want to go back in the water? You sure you want to evolve? As if it's the choice of these creatures, But, yeah, they seem to be escaping the water because sea scorpions are an apex predator in the water. That's mostly it. There is one stanza at the end I really like, though. It says, exposed to my interpretations, release me. My conscience is as clean as the bluest sky after a storm. You were so proud of our achievements. And this might just be talking about the general growth here in evolution, that as we've progressed through this, we've discovered new things, we've created new things. We're proud of all of that. We still don't know what all of this means, but the steps we've taken to get here are ones to be proud of. We list them as achievements rather than failures. It's an interesting track. There's a lot of change going on in here. It's a representation of rapid evolution and fluctuation of environment, skills, and even abilities. Even at one point, saying we've said things we've never said before. Maybe it's because language or the maybe even the entire muscle set of language itself has been altered through this evolution. I think the music going through so many changes encapsulates most of this. It has this feeling of constant growth throughout it, where we have the ups and the downs of the higher energy and lower energy sections, we can still generally see a rising of intensity or even intricacy across all of the lowest parts and all of the highest parts when you compare just those together. It is a song of growth. It is a song of development, and it is why the final part of the song is, I think, as complex as it is, particularly with the drums having their most dynamic and melodic set for the whole song. Yeah, very cool. I wonder if there is a second layer to this. I didn't bring this up yesterday, but one of the things I liked, if it was Pelagial, but one of the things I liked about that album was the secondary layer to it. It was about diving through the ocean and sort of exploring all of these levels um, of the ocean, different types of environments and creatures, different levels of light, and all sorts of stuff like that. But it also had the idea of going through the psyche as well and diving into the subconscious. and I think eventually the id even by the end of it. I don't remember. It's been a while since we checked that album out, but I do remember that second layer to it. And I vaguely recall one or two of the tracks also having something to do with uh, Stalker, the film, or Roadside Picnic, I think is what the book it was based off of was called. So there was three layers on some of the tracks, if I remember correctly. I wonder if I'm missing some of that here. All I get, especially from the annotations, is just this surface level idea of, this era of the Earth, but maybe there's more and it just requires the context of some of the other tracks. I mean, there's also just the general concept here of you and me, one person growing apart from the other, evolving into a way that the other person isn't happy with or kind of has some input on. I mean, this is definitely on the surface level a relationship between whatever this evolution is and the planet, but you can take that idea of one thing changing or evolving where the other doesn't, and you can take that relationship in a lot of different ways too, using it as a metaphorical springboard to dive into other types of relationships between people even. So there might be more depths to this that I'm missing. Regardless, we're going to wrap this up here. These are my thoughts on the ocean's Silurian age of sea scorpions. What did you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own thoughts or interpretations or opinion on this. Please put all of that down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.